ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start our meeting now, and so thank you for being with us. Councilmember Sonny Proctor, can you attest to the fact that we have a quorum present?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we do.
Thank you, sir. And I'd like to invite Reverend Max Kaler, if you will, to do an invocation for us.
Thanks, sir. Let us pray. Dear God, as we gather during this President's Month, we are reminded of our heritage as a nation, as well as the heritage of the spiritual guidance within our country. And so, Lord, as this council meets tonight, I pray that they would have your peace in their hearts, your grace in their words, your love in their hearts, and your joy be in their souls. We pray in your mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
Councilmember, would you read us our pledge of allegiance?
Sir. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Council, you have before you our agenda. I would entertain a motion at this time to adopt our agenda as presented.
You want to make a change on it?
For the consent agenda.
Yes. Wait to do that.
Make a motion to approve.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Council, you have in front of you our consent agenda, and I want to make a couple of changes on that. One is that the bidding process for construction of water supply and test wells will come out of the consent agenda and go into regular council for your feedback on that. And the second one is the matching funds for FEMA AFG Grant. Same procedure, and we want both of those to have some public input on.
So that would go to new business.
That would be under the consent agenda.
You need a motion to change that?
I need a motion to adopt the amended consent agenda with those two items coming out as said.
So moved.
And a second, please.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And the consent agenda is adopted.
Mayor, before you move on to the next item, I just wanted to note under the records management and retention policy that we may need to have the departments look at those policies that have now been adopted by the council and maybe give us some input on it. Some things to me are pretty cut and dry, like where they say you need to keep these records permanently, like for deeds of the city. But some records, they've given us suggested time periods, and you're not exactly required to do that time period, even though it's suggested. And I thought we might could get some feedback from each department on how they feel about the retention schedule and whether we need to slightly modify any of it. So I just wanted to suggest that we may want to do that and have it some council meeting in the future come back with some modifications to the schedule.
I'll ask our city manager if you will have those notes.
I'll make a
And
motion.
make certain that we get back with him for whatever modifications we might need on that.
Yes, sir.
We'll bring that up then after that to amend our records and management retention. Next on our items is We have a pinning ceremony for Ian Norton. I'm going to ask Fire Chief John Sherrer to bring this to us. Come forward, John.
Good evening, everyone. Pleased to announce that tonight we'll be pinning our new Assistant Chief, Ian Norton. He's had an excellent career in the city, and I can't think of anybody who I would rather have as an Assistant Chief for us. He's served us for over 20 years and continues to do so. We can look to bring Norton up, and his daughter's going to do the pinning, I believe. Is that right? All right. So right up here. It's okay if you're sticky. You'll be all right. You got first aid supplies.
A little bit of blood on that white shirt.
All right.
You will come down and we will have a photo session here with council.
Yes.
How about some family pictures? Come on up.
Ian.
Start side.
Hold on, Mayor, we're gonna get some more pictures.
Let me get out of the way of that.
Yeah, let 'em.
Under unfinished business, item 1, consideration to move forward with the selection of lowest RFP bidder for the JFD Renovations Construction Project. And we'll ask our city manager, Sonia Jammes, to bring this to us.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. If you'll indulge me for a few moments, I would like to take a little bit of the agenda to welcome our newest hire. As of today, Mary Elizabeth Burgess is our new Planning and Development Director. She has accolades a mile long. It would take about 30 minutes for me to read off all of her education and her training, so I'll leave that for later and just welcome her this evening to her very first meeting on her very first day. So, thank you.
You're needed.
Okay, so under the unfinished business, item 1, I just wanted to bring back to City Council for direction on the Jasper Fire Department Station Renovations Construction Project. As you're aware, we did an RFP. We had 2 respondents on the RFP. The lowest respondent came in at $432,951. I am seeking City Council's direction on whether we turn this RFP response into a contract, or if you would choose to go a different direction. I'm bringing this back as unfinished business. It's something that we undertook in 2022, and I would like to do some house cleaning and get that off of our agenda for 2023.
Is this coming forward out of committee, or did it come to us directly from?
So this came from committee, Mayor, if I may. So committee's been working with the department heads and the city administration. Given the bids that came in, and weighing the options of what's needed at the fire department, as far as Station 1 and a secondary station, as far as the apparatus, the investment we need to make, and then the investment in staffing. At this point, the facilities that we have are undergoing certain renovations through grants. We were able to obtain grants that the city administration worked on, and so at this point, out of committee, I think it would be wise
make a motion to reject the bids and continue to work at the committee level for other sources of funding and opportunities.
Have a motion to reject the bid, the low bid of $432,951.
And that committee is you and Jim at that time?
At that time, yes. Now it's myself and Ann.
That's the recommendation of the current committee, right?
Correct. Looking at a secondary station, when you look at almost $500,000, that investment could go towards allocating a secondary location versus putting a Band-Aid on the current location. We've communicated with the department heads and the fire department as a whole that one of our priorities as a committee is to get a second station in the location secured for that. And so rather than throw this funding at that, what we'd rather do is use the grant opportunities that we have those changes made that the city administration's already on, and continue to push forward for a second station.
So just to add on to that, our main goal with this particular project was to make for better accommodations for our firefighters who are there 24 hours a day. The front of the construction was to put additional office spaces and a public restroom. We are accomplishing the firefighter renovations based on the grant that we got from Home Depot. And we are making accommodations for the offices in a smaller space, but they are usable and workable. They will be usable and workable. There is currently $265,000 that we have towards this project designated from SPLOST funding. What we would like to do is repurpose that $265,000 to go towards identification of property and potential construction up on a 515 station, a second station up on 515.
Any further discussion by council?
Do we already have funding toward finding a second property? I know that was discussed in our SPLOST, 2020 SPLOST as well, so is there already dedicated funds whether we have them or not?
For station, what I have is $265,000 for the fire department right now. So however council chooses to use that funding, that's what you designated in the past to use towards that.
So that's prior budgeted funds?
Correct, yes, sir.
So what we're getting with the Home Depot grant and stuff, we can do, not what we started out, but we can make it to where they are satisfied with
We
what
can
we're gonna be able
upgrade
to
the
do and then
accommodations,
use this
yes.
in the future for the second location.
That's correct. We can upgrade the accommodations so that every firefighter has their own space and rest area, a room, bedroom, and we're able to do that. We will add a little additional money in there for some equipment like beds, standard beds and things like that, but that won't amount to close to $265,000. And we'd like to just repurpose this funding to go towards that station because it is a much needed station with the growth that we're experiencing on 515.
And the renaming of this current station, is that gonna continue, or is that, have we already done that and that's still gonna be part of the renovation
Yes,
project?
we already have a plaque
Okay.
for that, so it will continue to be that particular name of that station. So that won't change. We just won't put the wing on the front as we intended to, which was going to come in at $432,000. So.
And that property for future use, could it potentially be another station?
Station 1.
Could it be a nicer station?
The current station?
Could we raise it and rebuild in some future capacity, or just trying to?
So, in opinion, was speaking with the department heads who are back there snickering at this point, I'm sure. The second station that we build should be able to accommodate for our entire department if we go the route of demolishing the current station. That should take place because at the new facility, we're keeping public safety as a whole in mind. So there should be a police presence and opportunity there as well as fire. So yes, that could be a possibility. The main priority for the grant funding that we have now is to accomplish, as the city manager was saying, the sleeping quarters for all staff members. With the increase in staffing that we approved in our latest budget, this actually transforms that interior of the station and allows every staff member to have their own bunk. And so this is a much easier way, more efficient way, and it also dedicates that SPLOST funding that's accruing every month into that secondary station, which then again we can turn around and hopefully repurpose this station in the future if we needed to.
And the current renovation plan has both sets, restrooms and bunks, or?
So the way that, if I'm
Absolutely. That's right.
the way that the fire department is looking with the current drawings, the sleeping quarters are unisex, where every individual has their own sleeping quarters, correct, Chief?
Yes.
And the restroom situation would be very similar. Where
Just
they're
unisex.
unisex.
And the sleeping quarters will have curtains. They
Yes.
have doors that close. They'll have curtains per industry standard. So we're taking into liabilities where those types of things are concerned. So.
You have a
Anything
second?
else from council? I
No,
have,
sir, I made the motion, I'm not sure.
I have a motion, I don't have a second, but is there any other?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, second by Jim Looney. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same. And the motion carries. Item number 2 is consideration to move forward with the RFP for construction of Downtown Restroom Project. And we're going to ask Sonia to bring this to us also.
So this item is very near and dear to our hearts. I just wanted to present to City Council through this process. We have gone through a rather lengthy process where we have originally had wanted to use the existing structure. Then we went back to our engineers on this project and asked them to raise that structure and put us something brand new. So it's taking more time than we had originally intended for it to take. But with the new drawings, the new engineering, I left pictures at your area. It's a beautiful edifice. But we also had some costing done on how much that edifice is going to cost us. And it's going to be $918,767. So I'm bringing it back to council to see if this is the direction that City Council wants to continue in that trajectory. Right now, for the restroom project, SPLOST funding, we have approved $81,207. Now, there's engineering that has come out of that original cost. So we would definitely need to do some creative accounting when it comes to getting more funding, whether we get debt service on it or however City Council votes and chooses to go. But I just wanted to make sure that, you know, this is the direction that City Council wants us to go, to build from scratch. I have provided you with some ready-made prefab restrooms as well. If you were to choose to go to that direction, a crane brings those in, sets them down, and they are just as legitimate accommodations as what we have presented from the engineers. Although the engineers are very ornate and they're a beautiful structure. So I'm just bringing this before City Council, and because it has been a rather lengthy process, I just need direction on how City Council wants to move on these restrooms.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask you, you said we had 81,000?
81,207 for those downtown restroom projects right now, set aside as SPLOST funding.
Okay.
Now, there is other funding set aside for other projects that you could reallocate and put towards that, but that would also be a decision of City Council to reallocate and take up funding away from other projects to fund this downtown restroom project. So, yes, sir.
So, Clark Patterson and Lee has done exactly what we've instructed them
Yes,
to do. The time frame issue, which was somewhat our fault in the early stages, and then for whatever reason took longer than they'd anticipated. And I think along the way we have brought several things before council that helped guide the subcommittee to come up with this beautiful structure, even to even until recently, when we were all gung-ho about moving forward with that. I think the difficult thing in obviously is the cost, but it's also such a prominent location in our city that most of the prefab structures that I've looked at really wouldn't be satisfactory. Some of the other things that we've talked about in conversation are, for lack of a better term, single seaters, and would probably not accommodate the volume that we anticipate as we continue to grow our business downtown, particularly tourism. So that's, as we all know, that's kind of how we got here. I'd be willing, if we had the money, to move forward with this beautiful project. But I also think that some of the things that have been presented to us today are somewhat attractive. So whether we want to make a final decision tonight or send this back to committee, I think that's an option as well, with the understanding that there is some drive behind it, and we're moving forward. So that's the comments I'd like to make prior to motion.
Just curious, do we know or have any kind of estimation of what the cost would be to tear the building down that's there now?
We do not have a demolition cost.
Okay.
We could do some of that in-house, but there might be certain parts of the structure that we would need outside.
I would suggest that everything except the steel structure come down pretty easy.
I will say that the cost that we have presented is an estimated cost. We have not RFP'd the construction portion of this out. So it may come in under or over, but we wanted to know before we started that process what an anticipated cost was to see if we even wanted to go that direction. So,
Well, we paid extra in order to have that cost validated. At least.
That's correct, through an expert opinion. So, and they went line by line and gave us a square footage and a cost on the square footage as well.
So if you don't mind, I'd like to also add one thing on what you're talking about there, and that is that the existing structure, there's been a lot of speculation about why we don't use the existing structure, and yet when we went to engineering came back and told us that the existing structure is nothing but a facade of brick. It's not brick. So it looks brick if you're walking by or driving by,
It's cut brick, yes, sir.
but that particular structure, they say, would not be safe for us to build out under that particular frame. So therefore, we had to go back and have no choice but to go back to the ground up. Whatever we do, we're going to have to get rid of the structure that's there now.
Well, it was a bank, and so there's not plumbing or any of that in there. So yes, sir, you would have to build the internal guts of it to be a restroom as well.
Well, actually, there is a bank, there's a restroom.
There's
there,
a single
but
restroom.
but it's not ADA, and it's not.
The plumbing's there, but it'd all have to be
Breakdown.
redone.
Yeah.
So council, what you're,
Do you
let's have some more discussion here.
What are the possibilities of long-term financing?
I mean, we have possibility for GFA funding for long-term financing on this, if council chooses to go that direction, so.
I'll also share that there's some relatively good GFA loans available specifically for water. If there's some funds that we could somehow, that are otherwise headed toward water, I think you can get less than 3% GFA loans now,
Yes, sir.
specifically for drinking water, but I'm not trying to complicate. So in other words, we could do a rob Peter to pay Paul, for lack of a better term, but
The interest rates are attractive on GFA loans, yes.
I personally would, in light of the new stuff that's come about and this, like to see it go back to committee and narrow down and look at some of our, maybe some loan options, determine a little bit different as to what it would cost to get the building down, and maybe come up, bring it back to council with a little.
do you have any interest in maybe go ahead and getting the building down?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we gotta do that
We could
eventually.
phase it, we could phase it and go ahead and take the existing structure down if city council chooses to do that. I did want to go on note that we did some calling right before the meeting on the top prefab building that you guys have. They estimated around $300,000 for that top one, and that, you know, depending on the amenities, the additional
What color is the top
amenities.
one now?
These,
That we moved up.
It's
brown?
the orange, the one,
Oh,
and
this
the
one.
other one. Sorry.
This one's the
Yes.
top.
So that they estimated to be around $300,000. It would of course increase based on your amenities and what you added in, but just to give you kind of a price range on that prefab, we would have to stub out all the utilities, of course, and do all of that groundwork, but they would just come in and lay that building over.
So could we possibly make the recommendation that we take the building down and then look further? Because we gotta take the building down, period,
regardless.
regardless.
And then also too, with the new bathrooms, instead of going back with porcelain, I'd like to see us go back with stainless, something that's low maintenance and don't have to go out and get destroyed or burned or busted.
Yes,
See
sir.
if we can get it back up to $1 million, is that?
Yes, sir.
I'll make a motion that we send this back to committee to study funding and report back at the earliest possible time. And I would add to that amendment that we allocate part of that $81,000 to demolish the existing building.
Okay.
Let's get that area looking better.
Second for discussion.
I have a motion to send the entire back to committee, and we'll take a look at things there, and then also have an alternative to spend what is necessary on demolition up to $81,000, but what if it requires more, Jim?
I don't
If we
have
use
a
our
good
crews,
guess if that could be done for $81,000.
if we use our crews, we can probably.
Some of it.
Do we have time for our crews to do any, all but the steel structure I would give?
We will do it in a way that is cost effective for us. If it comes in over 81,000, we'll bring that back to city council to approve any additional overages.
I'll make that as a motion. We go ahead and demolish the existing building, allocating $81,000 to the demolition.
And I'll add on the discussion that our committee meets tomorrow, by the way, so.
Yes, it
For the
does.
purposes of the council and for the community.
Actually, Wednesday.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yes.
Wednesday. Yeah.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? To send back to committee and also to start demolition.
Yes.
Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. The motion carried. Okay, our next, under new business, is consideration of approval to annex and rezone parcel JA 10051.001 consisting of 14.44 acres located off of West Church into the City of Jasper as C2 Commercial Ordinance 2023-02. I want to explain to the people in our audience that I'm going to ask for a table on this because there was a time issue with publication of what we're going to do, that we have to now, under the new regulations, and I think I'll ask our city manager, David Simon, if he will explain these new regulations that are coming down to the state and down to our Department of Education.
Right, well, in 2022, the Georgia General Assembly looked at the annexation statutes and modified them with those modifications going into effect July 1st of 2022. And one of those modifications applications requires that prior to the council being able to take action on an annexation petition, that you have to send a written notice to the local school system, to the local Board of Education, and then the Board of Education, through the Board of Commissioners, has approximately 30 days in which to raise an objection to the proposed annexation. And, you know, since this proposal is going to be basically a commercial annexation, it ironically helps the school system in that it'll increase the school system's tax base, but since the statutory law requires that notice to go to them, and it was a change in the law that hadn't made it into our annexation checklist, the notice to the school system went out a little late, and they received it on January 27th. So we need to wait until at least February 27th for the council to take action on it in order to get those 30 days in. So I suggested that the most efficient fix would just be to table it to the work session at the end of the month or the first meeting in March.
Okay, so is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak about this action that we're taking tonight for the annexation of that acreage? Anybody here for that? Anyone have any comments about that? If not, I'll move forward. Council will entertain a motion to table until our next regular meeting, which will be on March 6th of 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And we're tabled until next meeting. Item number 2, 3, 4, and I don't know how many, Ms. Kim, but item number 2, consideration and approval of scope of work amendment, number 1 for the utility master plan by our contractor GMC. We'll ask our assistant manager, Kim Golden, to bring this to us.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight I want to talk to y'all about the utility master planning that we've had underway for several months by GMC, which is Goodwood Mills and Kaywood. They are in the process of finalizing things, which is the great news. On the water side, they are just about there. They've got the hydraulics worked, they've got all the information plugged in, and they are working on a draft version of the master plan for us to review. What is not coming as easily, though, is the wastewater side, and that is largely due to our lack of information on our structures. And I'm talking mostly about our collection system features, which would be the manholes that connect the runs of main. There is some lift station information that they are still needing to get, and most of this is vertical information that they are looking for, because that is what they need in order to calculate the hydraulics of what our pinch points are in the system and where the capacity issues may be from one station to another and in specific basins as they travel to a station. Knowing that they're having this issue, Corky Welch, as many of you have met with GMC, brought a proposal last week, which was presented to the Enterprise Funds Committee last week at their meeting on the 30th, about going and doing the survey work for us, getting that horizontal positioning information, and then also getting the vertical information. And by that I mean the bottom of the manhole, the inverts that are coming in as compared to the grade, so you know what kind of volume you've got within that manhole and what it can be expected to carry from one line to the next. They are estimating $60,000 to do roughly 800 manholes for us. We had some information that they have been able to use and plug in, but not having a very many good as-builts or just maybe proposed plans does not give them the confidence that they need in order to finish this. So the Enterprise Fund Committee agreed that this would be, this needed to come to full council for approval. And so tonight I'm asking for your approval to approve the task authorization or the amended scope of work for $60,000 so that GMC can finish this master plan up.
Council, I entertain a motion to approve the measure for $60,000
So moved.
as discussed by our assistant city. Motion and a second.
Second.
Any discussion by council?
This is coming out of the enterprise fund.
Yes, ma'am. And I will add, there are some other things that we would like to do, and that involves the cleaning and televising. Taking the master plan a step further is to get the condition of our system, and it would be very difficult for us to go out to bid and get quotes from a company to CCTV, clean and televise our system when we do not know where everything is, so.
And
You
if I
know
may,
where the system is.
if I may make
Yeah.
a comment, so we've made, we have taken action to improve our system and to improve the data collection around our system. If we stop short of doing this portion, we are not doing ourselves any favors with the investment that we've already made towards creating a master plan. So I will say GMC was quite shocked that we didn't have as much data as they would anticipate that we would have. This will help us get to that, that standard in order to have our information all in one area. So as your city manager, I'd recommend that we've already invested in a master plan, and we would do a disservice if we didn't continue to collect that data with this.
Thank you. Any further discussion by council? So did I get a motion in a second on that?
Yeah,
You
that's
just-
all they can-
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And we're gonna find out where our manhole covers are.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3 is consideration of approval of Pickens County Chamber 2023 agreement. We'll ask our wonderful employee, Lindsay Williams, if she will tell us about this finance.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As y'all are aware, every year we enter into an agreement with Pickens County Chamber of Commerce to help promote our tourism for the City of Jasper. We submit a quarterly payment to them, which is 66.67% of our collections, and we collect at a 6% rate on our hotel motel. I'm just asking for you to approve this agreement for the 2023 year from January 1st to December 31st.
Thank you. Yeah, now I'm assuming this agreement has been signed by,
Siphon, I think it's reviewed it maybe?
I have reviewed it. I don't
And
remember
released
the
yours.
address, signature line for
okay,
this.
I have not yet myself, but I want to make sure. Okay, so entertain a motion to approve the contract for 2023 for our Chamber of Commerce.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Any discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And full disclosure, we have with us in our audience our Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber, and we have next year's Chair of the Chamber.
This year.
So,
This year.
this year's Chair of the Chamber, excuse me.
You might want to get that.
And my wife, so I have to go home with that.
Only 10 months left, eh?
So thank you for being
You
here.
should have waited for 2 years.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Item number 4, moving right along. consideration and approval of derelict and blight ordinance. And we'll ask our city manager, Sonia Jammes, to bring this to us.
It's me again, Margaret. So as you know, cities throughout Georgia have issues relating to derelict and blighted properties. It's kind of hard to keep those a secret around your community as they're pretty evident. The city already has an ordinance, a blighted property ordinance. However, we wanted to take an opportunity to strengthen our current ordinance and give us opportunities to help police those areas more that are a safety issue, a health and a safety and a welfare to our city residents and take care of those. So we have presented with Mr. Siphon's approval the blighted and derelict and blighted ordinance for your consideration. It's rather lengthy, but I believe it encompasses everything that we would potentially be hit with in that area to manage. So I'm just requesting that approval for that tonight.
Thank
Can
you.
you hit the highlights of what?
I was gonna ask Mr. Siphon to read it.
Please don't do that.
It's not a habit we want to go back into.
No, it's not. Just hit the highlights of what do you, or have
Either one of us can. So it mainly looks at your properties that are, and we unfortunately have some properties that have been, that have had fires associated with them, and those properties are just boarded up and left and nobody revisits them again. It gives us policing powers to go back and either they remedy the issues around that property, or we are allowed to fine them. Any properties that are unsafe in nature, that someone can get injured around the properties, that will help. This will help us, give us more ability to address those issues. Those properties that they're in neighborhoods that their neighbors, we're constantly getting calls and complaints on. It will help us, give us the ability to go out and address those issues as well.
No, that's great. We were just gonna add, because we just got one done several years ago. We knew this was gonna be kind of a thing in process, but that's why I was just curious.
It is evolving.
Yeah, so I was just curious as to why.
I think that this ordinance is gonna cover holes that were in that ordinance. And so it gives us better managing and policing powers to and opportunities to help mitigate that, help our homeowners and citizens mitigate and move that into
like a
different.
partial burn
Correct.
down.
So,
It even covers things as like, if renovating blight properties and tax incentives, it will help that. It empowers the city to raise buildings that have not met the appropriate amount of improvements once they're.
It had been several years since we had worked on that, but, and we knew that was gonna be, we didn't have anything to start with, so glad to see it involved, and y'all are looking at that.
yes.
Thank you.
So this is an update to the existing.
Well, actually, this will be replacing the
Replacing.
older one, yes, sir. This will be a brand new policy.
With new language in there that will allow us to handle things like when you've had a fire and it sits there for.
Yes, sir, yes.
Okay.
Pass one of those today.
Council, I entertain a motion to approve derelict and blight ordinance number 2023-03.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion by council? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And the motion is carried. Item number 5, consideration and approval of updated municipal court fees, and we'll ask Tommy Dutton to bring this to us. Good evening, Tommy.
Hello. Hey, okay, so we met in the committee a couple weeks ago and looked over the fines. We decided to table the city ordinance fines till mid-year to look over them, but as far as the state fines go, we was wanting to look at maybe raising them 30% of the base fine. That's before state add-ons or anything. And then, on that total, you'll see there's a $10 tech fee, and that's added to the total fine. And that just goes into like a technology fee that can be used for the court or any kind of evidence for the police department. They'll cover computers and anything technological. But we haven't raised the fines since, I believe, 2015. So, you should have it listed on.
This admin committee?
Public safety.
Public safety, sorry.
If I could jump in, I kind of hate to do it. I didn't give the schedule till Friday, so under state law, there are certain offenses that you can cite by way of the statute. And with that citation, there's a statutory penalty that you can assess that sometimes is greater than $1,000. And the example is DUI. You know, a first DUI has a certain statutory amount, a second DUI has another statutory amount, and a third DUI has another statutory amount. And in my memory, it's been a while, and Tanya probably can tell us, is that they're all over $1,000. And you can do that in a city municipal court because the statute sets that penalty. For ordinance violations, you know, what your charter says is that the penalty can be up to $1,000 and or 180 days of community service or detention, or both. And on top of that maximum of $1,000, you can add on all the add-ons that the court system allows for, you know, clerk retirement fund, and I can't remember what all, there's like 10 of them that you can add in. Our charter also allows us to assess up to $200 in court costs and up to $25 in a technology fee. So you got your cap of $1,000, and then you got your add-ons plus your court costs plus the technology fee. So for certain offenses, you can go over $1,000. And looking at the schedule over the weekend, I got a little worried that some of the offenses that may be cited by ordinance as opposed to statute, the penalty provision had gotten bumped over $1,000. And under our charter, I don't know that we can do that unless we can tie it into a statute that allows us to do so. You know, something that we may want to look at for one of my cities this year, we asked the legislative delegation to change the charter penalty where we could assess a fine of up to $3,000 per offense. And I'm not suggesting every offense would be $3,000, but it gives us more room to keep up with inflation as to what should be charged. And I guess what I'm saying is I hadn't had a chance yet to go through each of those penalties to be sure that we haven't gone over the cap required by the charter.
Yeah.
Right.
Council will entertain a motion to table this until our next regular meeting.
But the chief may have in.
My understanding, this was just gonna be for our state violation, no ordinance, this, we're not even gonna, because of what ordinance things I told you, like, we're not gonna release anything in ordinance right now because of that, but this was just for, state, like the 16 or the 40 codes
and some of the 16 code and stuff like that, so.
Right, and we went
And
through
that's what-
everything and pulled up the
Yeah,
case
so
law.
we got,
make
we
sure
get away with
we
it,
didn't go over.
not away with it, that's already gonna go back to the committee, I think, next time.
Because that's gonna come to you before we do anything with that, because of that reason.
That's why we
Yeah.
pulled that out, to send
We
that
did
to
pull
you.
that out.
If y'all are comfortable that there's a statutory provision for each of those, then I don't have a problem with
Yeah,
it.
for this.
That should have been attached to your action form.
But, you know, I just hadn't had a chance to check that.
Those are statutory fees only. We took out any local, we wouldn't try to push any of that through without your observation and comments on that, so.
As long as there's a statutory authorization for it, I have no problem with it.
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And we went through the state law and made sure that everything was
Okay,
where it needs to be too.
okay, sounds good.
And we'll try to go ahead and get those other ones sent to him, give him time to look at them. I know we're not gonna look at them for a few months, but that'll give him time without.
So we're back to needing a motion, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we still,
Mayor, you call for a motion. I'm gonna go ahead and proceed with the motion to table pending legal review.
Got a motion to table pending legal review. Do I have a second? Without a second, the motion fails. Council, I entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Statutory only.
Statutory only.
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second for discussion.
I have a motion and a second for discussion.
David,
Discussion by
question.
council?
Would it behoove us for you to review what we're presenting tonight and come to your next meeting, just for clarity?
Well, you know, both Tommy and the chief are telling me it's all tied to.
They got
They're not attorneys.
They got up here too.
They're not attorneys.
Well, you know, if they are absolutely sure it's all tied to a statute, then I don't know that I have a problem with y'all approving it. I just was wanting y'all to know that I didn't have enough time this weekend
yeah.
to go through and check it. But, you know, they do a great job
Yeah.
and
And we discussed that in committee
We
of
did.
bringing those back to you. We weren't gonna do anything with them until we had that approval, but you had a lot on your plate for right now, doing some other stuff, so that's why we only wanted to bring these for now, since they had already researched and done that.
And, you know, if they tell me there's a statute to support it, then I believe them. And-
These are outlined with, you know, and some of them have maximums and you can't go over that, and we looked at those.
Right.
So the motion is for statutory only, is that correct?
Correct.
That is correct.
And we have a second.
Any further discussion by council? Questions? This will be a good time. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Thank you.
And the motion carries. And Mr. Syken.
Y'all did a good job.
You will
Thank
definitely
you.
go through
Stand your ground.
and let us know if there's anything else that we need. Thank you, gentlemen.
You got good nickel back in you, Tommy.
Yeah.
Came up here like, ooh,
And vice versa too, by the way.
Right.
So,
good job, y'all did a good job.
Consideration of approval of standardized parade route. And Chief, you were already close to stand up for this, so bring this to us.
Right?
Hi again, good evening, Mayor, Council. So, we all know that we have, 4 or 5 parades a year starting in July. And every one of the parades have a different route, either coming from Spring Street towards D.B. Carroll, or D.B. Carroll to Spring Street, nobody ever knows which way.
Yes. Okay.
So, I will say, Boneheader, Assistant Chief Davis, I think Ian has even had a little say in this, a lot more than I have. They did some research and come up with a standardized parade route. This did go in front of committee in January, and it would start, it'd be on Stegall. We'd use Stegall as 3 lanes of travel. I think there's about 3 houses on there. We'd open up 1 lane for them to go in and out. Just about any parade we have could set up on Stegall.
to Lux to go, take a left on Mark Whitfield, or right on D.B. Carroll, down Main Street, across 53, Spring Street, and disperse down Spring Street. And that would be the standard parade route for every parade we have. I'll take us back to our Christmas parade we just had. Granted, it was a nice Christmas parade, it was a long Christmas parade, but it took every resource this city had to shut down roads, to include cadets from Gypsy. And if they didn't show up, we've been shorthanded. That was a lot. Public Works, fire, police, and like I said, cadets. So that was a lot, and that was kind of the thing that kicked it off, that we really need to do something. Also, it would help Kim. She would only have to put one parade route. Copy paste. And it would also, when you talk about manpower, for us to shut down a parade route right now, I have to bring in, for the police department, anybody that's off at 7 o'clock in the morning, and they go till it's over. So right now, we could really just bring in maybe 3 in the morning while they're setting up for a parade, and then we bring in the other ones when the parade starts at 10, closer to 10. So it helps with overtime, and that goes for the fire department, public works. I think it should help them as well. So it should cut down on a lot of resource. So we ask that y'all can approve, hopefully our proposal for a standardized parade route.
There's only one parade that wouldn't follow it, and
Yes,
it would
I'm
turn and go the opposite way.
Is the Veterans Parade, and it's still the same route. It's just they would do it opposite because they always end at the Veterans Memorial Park. So that would be the only exception.
Council entertain a motion to approve the standardized parade route as presented.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion by council? Any questions?
So those turns will be okay for big trucks and things that need to make the turns?
Yeah, we'd make sure anything was off Mark Whitfield. We have 18 wheelers come down, their food trucks come through that way anyway. So
Questions, discussion by council?
I think it's great. I think they've done a great job of doing it, and I think it's gonna save the city time, energy, and money. So,
Let's
they're
do
doing
it.
good.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. The motion carried.
thank y'all.
Thank you. Item number 7, consideration and approval of Worley Preserves amended plat. Our Assistant City Manager can go for this.
Good evening again. So in your packet tonight, I've included several pieces of information for you. There are some 11 by 17 pages. The first 3 are the proposed plat that the developer of the Worley Preserve development has brought to us. The second 3 pages is what was originally approved several years ago, back in 2021, I believe, when phase 2 was finished. And then I've got some information for you from P&Z meeting back in June of 2019, and then council meeting from July of 2019. The developer is proposing to add 2 additional lots. It's lot number 126 and 163 at the very end of the cul-de-sac of Crossroads Circle. We brought this to the Development and Local Infrastructure Committee last week and talked about it, and I'll be the first one to admit this was before I found the original plat. And so the Development Committee was not wild about the prospect of adding 2 additional lots. And so we were going to come tonight and present this and see what full council would like to do. I found the plat, the original one, and it showed those 2 lots, not by number, but as future lots on that original plat. And so we brought Mr. Siphon into the discussion and asked him, knowing that this was a PUD development and that it was already shown on the original plat, what were our options? Did we have the ability to say no to these lots, or was it something that we needed to go ahead and approve because it had already been discussed? David reviewed everything and determined that the PUD allows the developer to have up to 6 units per acre. This is a 31-acre area for a total of 186 units or lots out there, and they are well under that number. They're at right at 161, I believe, and so adding the 2 would not break the guidelines or the stipulations of the current PUD. So council is requested to approve the amended plat for phase 2 of Worley Preserves to add those 2 lots, 126 and 163, at the end of Crossroads Circle.
So I entertain a motion to approve these 2 additional lots, platted as presented.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second for discussion.
Have a motion and a second for discussion. And let's go to discussion.
So this, just some clarification for the council and the public, this particular PUD is approved for this density. And the way that we achieve that, of course, is that David writes separate ordinances for each individual PUDs. And for the new members of the committee, that is one of the few times where we have a significant amount of control over above, well, I won't say above and beyond constitutional use, but it gives us where we can basically tell them what they have to do. There were some contingencies on the approval of that PUD, and I'd like to ask, the contingencies involved splitting the cost of the infrastructure, and I'm just curious if we ever verify that has been handled from the developer standpoint. We've had conversations about it, and there were some issues about how that was. That's my question. Has that been?
I think that the cost of it was split with in-kind cost. I believe the infrastructure, a lot of the infrastructure was laid by the developer, and that's how it was.
And then the bores under
Yes.
515 were
Yeah.
the most substantial component of that. When this came up earlier, I believe sometime last year, when Lonnie was still here, he had gone through and found the receipts and the documentation from the developer on what they had contributed towards
So there was a
that project.
cash component, and I'm just making sure that whether it be in kind or not, that was met, and that's what I'm asking.
It was a significant amount of money, yes.
I think it was 300,000.
It was a little over that, I do believe.
300 is what I remember, but as it refers to these, your specific question about these 2 lots, do you have one? As far as these?
Well, no, but my vote's contingent on them satisfying the requirement of the approval of the PUD originally.
Okay.
And I'm hearing that they've met that requirement to the best of our knowledge, and it sounds like there's been a fair amount of research done to
Yes.
satisfy that.
There was, and we've got invoices from them that amount to what they had originally were supposed to.
Okay.
And
If not more.
there was nothing on the original contingent that would stop them from these 2, correct?
No.
I don't believe so.
No, we
Yeah,
negotiated, so that was a PUD that, even though it was a PUD, it was non-mixed use, it was residential only. And it's the one, if y'all remember, that was under in the county's service delivery area. And so we were able to peacefully negotiate that somewhat. And so that's, and indeed they were originally dotted lined to be potential lots, as Kim mentioned, so.
Any further discussion by council? All in favor of approving the plat as amended to include the extra 2 lots?
Aye.
All opposed, same. And that's approved.
Thank you for the research.
Thanks again very much.
Thank you.
Item number 8, we took off of consent agenda and
Yes.
bidding process for construction of the water supply test wells that we're going to drill.
Yes.
And I think that we would like to have a discussion of that for the public.
Okay, sure. So, me again. So last year at the June 6th council meeting, council had approved kind of a phased approach towards investigating prospective groundwater or municipal well sites as a part of our water supply diversification strategy. Try and say that 3 times fast. Robert Adkins, who is a professional geologist, was contracted with to basically investigate. Go out and look and find some sites that might be favorable to pursue test wells at, both in terms of water quality, water quantity, and then also location being favorable, meaning that it was on city property and not an area where we would have to negotiate any kind of easement with the property owner or purchase or anything like that. They came back with turnip seed and gave us a report of roughly 15 sites that they thought would be worth pursuing, and they ranked them according to most favorable to least favorable. And they have recommended that we take the top 3 sites, which all happen to be city property. 2 of those are located out at Doris Wigington Park. One is on Hood Road off at a lift station that we have there. That parcel is fairly large, and so there is plenty of space there. He feels that those are pretty favorable locations, and it would be worth our while to possibly do some test wells out there. That is the first part of it, though, that there is no obligation to go and pursue doing a production well until the 3 test wells have been drilled. They've done some initial analysis on both quantity and water quality, and feel that it is meeting a certain guideline that we, a target that we have for production. So what we are asking for approval tonight is to take the proposal. Turnip Seed has prepared some bidding documents and things for us to go out to bid to have those 3 test wells drilled. Now this is, like I said, it has nothing to do with the production well, okay? That would be the next step should this be favorable. Turnip Seed's not even developed the plans or anything for it yet. So this is just for approval to go out to bid. Once we get those bids in, you'll see my smiling face back up here tonight, asking for approval to do, accept one of those. This was discussed at Enterprise Funds Committee, and they were positive in moving forward and bringing this to full council for review and approval.
There was a suggestion that it go out to bid from Enterprise.
There was.
Yes.
Yes.
No, that was my comment. Not
Oh, yes, I agree.
I was there.
Everybody has agreed.
Council, I entertain a motion to proceed with the process of going out to bid on these 3 test sites.
So moved.
And I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Okay.
Any further
Discussion.
discussion?
Do we have proposed financing for this process once it occurs, or is that to be determined by?
I believe we have some SPOS funding that we've set aside on the SPOS list.
For the testing,
Yes.
that can come out of the enterprise fund, so
Okay.
we'll be okay with that. But
What's our
down the road, if we decide to do a well, we'll probably look at different options, depending on how much it costs.
Okay. And what's our current SPOS? Is it about the same amount as this project? Isn't it 1.4 or something like that?
Yeah, we're probably close to that, yes.
And this is an ignorance question, but I'd like to ask it. In the process of the bidding RFPs, do we have some sort of contingency that, let's just say we hit pay dirt the first time, do we have to continue to drill the 3, or could we pull the plug on that and then move forward?
I guess we could write that in the RFP.
that-
We could articulate it
Yeah, the
that way.
documents, it's still in draft phase
Yeah.
right now. We've still got to provide some dates and things to achieve, so we could certainly have Lamar make that amendment in the document too, that, hey,
Whatever he thinks.
you hit the first one and it's great, then let's not worry about it. Let's take the rest of that money and funnel it towards possibly a production well in the
Don't we
future.
love optimism?
Yes, got to be positive.
Gotta be. Gotta be.
As long as they bring their rod with them.
Any further
Yes.
discussion about that? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. And that motion is carried. Next time.
Thank you for the explanation. I think that's very important for the citizens to understand what we're trying to do with water
Absolutely.
and the diversity.
Next
So thank
item
y'all.
is the matching fund for FEMA AFG Grant for firefighters. And Kim, while you're here,
I promise I'm gonna sit down after this one, okay? Yeah. So tonight I come before you, you may recall last January I stood before you for the very first time and asked for council's approval to obligate some matching funds for the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant, the preparedness portion of the grant, which we unfortunately did not get funding for. They have opened that period back up this year again. It's actually due this Friday. And so Chief and Assistant Chief have identified a need to replace 20 sets of our SCBA air packs. Each one of those comes with 2 new cylinders, as the equipment that we have is all 2 or more cycles out of compliance with NFPA standards. We have gotten a quote from Municipal Emergency Services in the amount of $226,460. FEMA sets cost share amounts based on the size of your jurisdiction and who you serve. And so our local cost share is just under 5%. So what we would be obligated to contribute, should we be awarded funding, would be $10,783.81. Now that amount may fluctuate just a little bit. I was talking with the chiefs Friday, as a matter of fact. We may need to make that 21 sets because the sets have to match with the number of seated positions you have in the vehicles. And so there's been some changes, but they're going through and making sure that that's the right number. I don't think that that would change the amount that we would have to come up with by more than $500. So you're looking at about $11,500 at the most is what I would say we would have to obligate. Again, we don't have to do that until we are awarded funding. So
Where would we get that from?
so we've looked, yeah, we've looked at the fees that are coming in for fire inspection, possibly pulling some of that from that. There are some other areas, you know, we have a line item for small equipment. It's minimal, but I think there are some areas that we would be able to pull those funds from.
Sonia, your limit now is 25,000, is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes,
I often forget that.
Because we changed it.
So just to add on to what Kim was saying, I think that we can't afford not to agree to this amount. That is
Cycles out of compliance.
right. That is would be an amazing opportunity for the city to get all of that equipment replaced under grant funding.
and we
So-
pulled this out of consent agenda again, because we felt like the public needs to know what we're doing in our processes. Do we have an opportunity to say at this point that we will definitely get that grant?
Well, my track record here lately has been pretty good, but I can't make you any kind of guarantees. The FEMA grant, this is one of the most competitive that's out there. I mean, these are departments of all sizes all across the country. So we are up against departments that have true need just like us. And so I certainly hope that we will be considered and that we may be awarded, but I can't guarantee it.
So the bottom line is it would behoove us as a council to approve this expenditure should we get this grant, and you'll come back to us when we do.
Absolutely.
All right. So council, I entertain a motion to approve the matching funds for this $226,000 grant that we cannot have yet.
So moved.
Second? Motion and a second?
Second, but could we change that amount to $12,500 instead of worrying about the 21st set? Give them a a
Sure, just to give us a
rather
little
than
buffer.
exact amount.
Yeah, and then if we get that, we bring it back, it's always nice to know where it's coming from, out of what fund or,
Yeah.
so we don't.
All right, so we're going to have an amendment to the motion to approve this for $12,500.
Correct.
Entertain a motion to approve the amendment for $12,500.
What'd you just ask for a motion?
I'll make that motion.
And I need a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. We'll go to committee reports, public safety and judicial. With your council members Kurt Rathfield and Ann Snake.
On this committee, so public safety judicial, we did have a committee meeting in the police department specifically, looking at incentives as far as education, experience, training, and certifications. That is sitting with the chiefs and the city administration. On the municipal court side, we did look at the fee and fine schedule. What was presented to you tonight was exactly what we discussed in committee, where the state statutes would move forward, the local ordinances would not. We will, as a committee, revisit the local ordinances with the department heads, and then probably push that over to legal for review later in the year. On the fire side, we are outfitting Rescue 2. It is still kind of in a holding pattern, waiting on equipment. There have been improvements made over at the station already, with the city manager approving parking areas and some changes going in over there. And I think the last thing would be what we discussed earlier, the grant opportunities that we've pursued with the interior changes and renovation. We're able to accommodate the current approved staffing and look at options for a second station.
Thank you, sir. Ann?
Be something.
Parks and Properties, Dr. Proctor and John Bass.
We meet on Wednesday, obviously we'll be talking about bathrooms and other things. This is a new committee for me, so.
Well, we'll have doors we can talk about, we'll have bathrooms, we'll talk about City Park. We've got a busy year, and we're gonna need a lot of help, Kim, so.
Yes, sir.
Okay, moving on to enterprise funds, Jim Looney and Folks and Proctor. Dr. Sutherland.
Well, I think most of the things that we talked about, we have been discussing tonight. The only thing that comes to mind additional tonight was our plan to move forward with the commercial garbage services. And we're looking at several different ways depending on locale, on how we will handle that. Just as soon defer the specifics until it's formalized. So I think that's it.
Thank you, sir.
May want to just update that AMI is nearing 50% the meters being installed. In fact, I think last week was supposed to be a big week for them, so maybe significantly over the 50%.
As soon as we get some cooperation with the weather, I think we'll see a big push forward on getting those meter installation change-outs accomplished. So.
But anyway, it's moving well.
Right.
But we're also ready to begin construction, is that correct?
Yes, sir. So Reeves Young has received their notice to proceed. So they have been staging equipment on the plant site and finalizing their schedules based on their procurement of materials too. So.
Long time coming.
Finance and Administration, Council members Ann Snavy and Jim Lynn.
Development, local infrastructure, sorry.
Step development.
D.
We did do development.
That was enterprise.
You did enterprise.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Makes the bill.
I skipped you twice.
He was trying to tell you something.
I'll pray about that. Go ahead. Go ahead on the vote, that would be you and Councilmember John Fowles. And we had a long meeting too.
We did, committee met, very, very good meeting. We are looking at the drafted ordinances for our moratorium. We are excited to have the new director here with us. And so, you know, we're committed to excellence on this committee. We're actually looking at education, training, and certification opportunities for staff. The new director has some ideas. It's pretty exciting.
Good deal.
Approach you a pretty good card player too. Every card there is. That's good. Excited about that.
Thank you.
It's exciting.
Now I'm excited to move to finance and administration. And Jim.
I think we have acted on the social media policy this evening. That came as a recommendation from the committee. Also creating policies for billing process to charge customers and affiliates with damage to infrastructure. Committee recommended having a staff member sign the social media policy as it's presented to them. And then also approved posting vacant position that were adopted in the 2023 budget, and making moves toward having those positions filled. That's all I have.
Okay. Council, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So.
Second. All in favor?